G'day, it's Pete here, and I'm back again to discuss some more ideas for Bridge. And today I wanted to look at what sort of feedback or analysis tools do we currently have. It's something that I think is starting to improve, but I think we can do much better on it. Currently, there's sort of an over-reliance on double dummy analysis where it shows you if everyone plays perfectly and you knew where all the cards were, what could actually happen. But often that's not actually really good. So what I want to do is jump in and show what sort of statistics and things we've got on various sites, but also cover some of my ideas, what I would really like to see for the future. But before we do that, I wanted to highlight this. This was 6 years ago. I did a series called Journey to the Bermuda Bowl where me and Justin were sort of reviewing stuff. Our coach went through and did this kind of analysis for us to highlight where our strengths and weaknesses actually were. So he went through all these hands that we played on ViewGraph against really tough opponents and compared where were we winning and where were we losing against them. And I think this sort of stuff could be really useful. And I feel like we've got the technology that we could actually do that. So I want to look at what we have now and what other games do, what sort of things we can pick up from them, and then some of my ideas. But before we do that, I want to look at some of the comments from my previous topic where I was looking at the new player experience. I want to see what everyone said about that. Jerome Paul said, "You're quite right about the complexity and the barrier to many. In my country, the Netherlands, an elegant teaching method exists. Initially, it just ignores the bidding with all its complexity and allows you to get familiar with playing and builds up an understanding of what makes a good hand. And then after that, then they start introducing the bidding and it seems to make more sense." This is sort of a common thing that we've said in lots of the comments, sort of really honing in on the card play first, which I think is a really solid strategy. Joey Lamb said, "Before I learnt contract bridge, I actually learnt to play hearts and German bridge first. They are easier to learn, but still offer some transferable concepts." Again, I think that's really useful for building experience. It's a great way to actually learn, but where everyone's actually going to come from. We want ways where whoever you are, whatever experience you're coming from, there's sort of an easy path into it that you can actually find without having to do heaps of research about how to do it. It should be easy how you can find it. It's great if you've got all that background information, and it'll definitely help the learning experience. But I think we need to provide something that's good for everyone. Edmund Lee said, "Thank you, Pete, for bringing up this topic. It has been one of the most neglected topics in Bridge. From what I see, Bridge has been very difficult to introduce to new players and even harder to retain new players." Basically, mini bridge on BBO may be a decent starting point for what's already available. For those that don't know, mini bridge is basically bridge without the bidding. It just sort of sets the contract and then you start playing. It's a great spot to try and start, but for instance, I don't think BBO is capitalizing. Like when you sign up, you say, "I'm a new player," and it's like, "Great, here's a hand, jump in and actually start playing." Taylor McKinnon said, "You're quite right that everyone should start learning the game with basic card play. Personally, however, I do think that a basic knowledge of elementary conventions, such as you mentioned, strong no trumps, Damon, and Blackwood as an example, can go a long way in getting new players to see how both elements interact with each other." I do think it's important they learn it at some stage, but I think you want to give people lots of time to find the enjoyment of the game. And then once they've got that, then they can start adding it in. It's not that I don't think you should ever teach these conventions, and there is a time and a place. I think we just put that sort of too early on. Garki said, "I think an online system should be designed where beginners kick off with robots without conventions, concentrating on card play, and then programs should gradually phase in basic conventions after a given number of hands played over time. Young players would benefit from such a system." Yeah, that would be sort of my ideal thing. I wish there was something like that. Archie Wusong said, "I started bridge lessons at a local club before COVID. They were interrupted. I read some books, went to some improving courses where hopefully they would volunteer a partner. On both occasions, I got the feeling I ruined the evening for the allocated partner. Apparently, I didn't lead my partner's suit and had no idea about quantitative 4-no trumps or transfers to minors." So I think there's another aspect is when people are just starting out, we want like a safe, fun environment where they can get in and actually get that experience. There should be no, oh, you did that wrong, you didn't play all the stuff. There has to be some sort of middle ground to help them in. John Gillespie said, I'm a new player and I've worked my way through the Learnbridge series on YouTube, trying to get started. Interestingly, I've played online chess for a number of years. With chess players, learn the basic moves quickly and then they get to quickly and then can quickly jump in and have a go. The only way to progress in chess is to eliminate making fundamental mistakes, or what are called blunders. Beginners are also encouraged to solve lots of tactical puzzles, such as identifying the next correct moves in a given position to improve. Yeah, so I reckon that would be another good aspect. So having sort of beginner puzzles where when you're a new player, like it'll pop up and say, hey, what should you do? Maybe it's take a finesse, maybe it's just build an extra trick. We do have those puzzle hands already set. So there's things like Bridge Master, and there's even like Bridge Master for extreme new players. I believe Audrey Grant did a version. There's some of these things where good puzzles could be done so that when people jump in, they can start playing. Then they get posed some problems once they've got a bit of an idea to how do you actually solve it and improve their tactical knowledge there. Steve Fake said, I think the best option is to learn the game to play with robots, to get feedback about your bid before you make it, see what partner's response is. Yeah, so my thoughts are like that's good. I chucked a reply in here, which was one of the things that when you see the reply, like what all the descriptions of a robot's bids mean, you'll look for all of your bids and go, oh, is this the one that I should do? Okay, let's bid it. I'd really want some middle ground where you want to try and choose your bid. And then once you're about to bid it, it gives you like one review. Hey, the robot thinks this is what you're showing. Is that what you want to bid? And you're like, oh, actually, no, let's try something else. Because otherwise, if all the thoughts are just there, then people will just scan the bids. They don't try and learn what their bids actually mean. What they learn to do is look for the bid that matches their description. But there's some sort of middle ground there. I don't exactly know how to do it. Robert Side said it depends on prior experience with cards. Some come to it with no knowledge beyond Snap or Old Maid, and some are even casual or even good 500 or Euchre players. The first group can start with the basics. Yep. And the second group can do counting points, simple bidding rules, and partnership understanding. And then introduce basic conventions. Yeah, so I think there could be different tiers of like, I'm a new player, I haven't played cards, and this is the pathway that the roadmap that you go. Or I've got lots of experience, but I don't understand actually bridge bidding, and then it will sort of prop you a bit forward. So I definitely think you could sort of separate those out a little bit. Magic Mel said, I've been playing some pseudo bridge with my kids, and what we do is we say our high card points and what is our longest suit for all hands, and then just based on what we agree on the final contract is going to be, which is eerily close to what actual bidding actually would end up with. So using like converting bidding into actual just spoken language can help people understand, and is actually a decent way for teaching new players to actually do it. Just like, hey, I've got 5 hearts. They don't need to bid 1 heart or something. Or the person with the most high card points becomes the declarer. And you'll get to like a decent spot there. And that's another way that you can make bidding more approachable to new players. So great idea there. Fergal of Farrell. I think you're onto something. It's way harder to teach beginners now because very few have ever played cards. Starting with bridge as your first card game is very difficult. I started with playing cards like Snap when they were about 5, and I've been playing all my life for 73. Yeah, so I definitely think the difference of people's experience of playing cards at home has drastically changed this. 50 years ago, everyone played cards all the time, and then teaching them bridge was a lot easier. These days, most people don't play cards at home, and that will drastically change people's entry level, and I don't think that we've actually addressed that. Mr. Dan said, Gavin Walpert, Rob Barrington, and you have great weekly games to follow. play the free weekly game pro-am, then watch how the pros play it. Gavin and Rob properly explain in the most detail what and why of a bid or a play. Once in a while I score you better. This is usually not the case. You outplayed me in the bidding or in the play or the cards or both. Being able to watch each as they played is quite interesting and educational. I think what I do, what Gavin and Rob do, are fantastic for people to improve and get, like, once they're in the door and then start getting better, looking at how top players actually analyze their hands and comparing your thought process. It's not a particularly great way for people to get right in the door, and that's really what I'm trying to hone in here. Robert Fuller said, learning bidding conventions is the most important part. I can't bid properly, but can play quite well. There's definitely a time and a place to learn bidding conventions, but I bet you wouldn't have started playing well in, like, right from the get-go. Getting that fun part's really important. I feel like there's this spot where as you're learning, you're like, it's really important to learn bidding, and then it's really important to learn card play, and then bidding, then card play. And once you get your bidding to a certain level, then you want to get your card play to a certain level, and vice versa. And it sort of like alternates what's the weakest point in your game. It sounds like here, you personally want to be focusing on your bidding to get to that next level. But learning conventions right from the get-go, A, isn't fun for most people, and B, won't actually help them if they can't play their cards, whereas getting them into the meat of the game is probably like the most fun that I can do. Tormoland said, interesting video. I want to teach my girlfriend someday, but haven't found a way to make it fun. I hope we can get some answers in this series. I hope that this sort of prompts more people to discuss it, and then what I'm going to talk about today. Hopefully we can get more ideas and inspire some people that can actually create these things to do it. So there's more comments, but thanks for all the comments. Let's jump in and let's look at some analysis tools. So I wanted to take a look at what the current websites and ways that you can actually review hands are. And some of the best are Funbridge. They've got sort of all the hands that you've got here. But then they've tried stuff which is sort of like this detailed analysis, how many minor mistakes, serial mistakes, or theoretical optimizations. It does have the double dummy that you've got there. And you can also replay a hand, so you can jump in and play it again very easily. And it's got a written description of your analysis of your bids. Basically, the analysis will be, is it basically exactly within the definition that Arjun actually thought it would have? So they're the analysis that it has after it plays a hand. It's also talks about how many people played in no trumps like that, how many took more tricks or fewer tricks, and sort of where you rate on that. But the best thing that I think Funbridge has, and I would really like to see this expanded a lot more, is it's got like a summary of your last 200 deals, and you can actually see all of your deals. So you can compare your last 200 deals to all your deals. And basically it's broken down the deals into part scores, games, slams, no trumps, not or suit contracts, the different levels that you got, are you doubled or not? And it says like, what percentage of the hands are you declaring? And how often do you actually make the contracts that you actually declare? And here I can see how my last 200 deals have compared against all my deals. Or maybe I can compare against the Elite series and see what's the difference here. So for instance, I defend 24% of the time, whereas most Elite players defend 27% of the time. And I beat 35% of the contracts that I defend, whereas they beat 34. So over 200 deals, these are pretty even. They're relatively close, but you can see how this can actually vary. Or we can compare it against Arjun and see what differences you can do. And you can see your success rate, Arjun's success rate, and you can see where your weaknesses actually are. Where aren't you doing it? I think this is fantastic, and I'd really love to see this expanded a bit more. So on Interbridge, when you play pairs games, they've got some other interesting statistics that they've got. They've got this nice overlay of your percentage of all your boards and how do you track through the session. It does break it up into part scores, games, slams, and also were you the declarer, the dummy, on lead or not on lead, and also highlights what sort of time you're taking up versus what the opponents are taking up. And when you actually play a hand, you can review it. You can click the double dummy, or if you want to replay it, you can actually just unwind the bidding here and say, okay, I want to play. Imagine it was in 5 hearts, like the auction went 1 no trump past 5 hearts. And then you can check the double dummy of that really easy. Like it can highlight how you can replay the hands, check out other stuff super quickly there. I think Funbridge has the best analysis feedback stuff. Interbridge has some good stuff as well. BBO I haven't actually mentioned here because I don't think that they've got good analysis at all. But then I wanted to take a look at other games, and I think chess is a great reference because they do some stuff really well. So here, over on the right, what it's got this sort of chart of like who was winning throughout the game, and if there's more black was winning. If there's more white was winning. And it tells you it's your accuracy compared to what a robot, the AI does. And it also categorizes your hands into brilliance or inaccuracies, mistakes, blunders. Funbridge had something pretty similar to this. Funbridge's one is mainly like, have you made an inaccuracy, a mistake, or a blunder? I don't think they have enough of the optimism sort of stuff. But other things that you can do here is like, oh, I missed 2 things, so let's check it. And you can just click here and it'll pop it to where you were in the game, and it says, oh, this one wasn't great. And it gives you a written description. You only had 1 good move. You overlooked an opportunity to defend a pawn. Do you want to retry it? And it'll show you like, okay, let's go back here and what should we have actually done? And then you can go, oh, yep, that's the best move, and great. And then you can also check analysis of the boards. But I really like this throughout a hand progression, what's actually happening, or throughout a game progression, what's actually happening. Often you can look at double dummy and you sort of just like click through double dummy as you go. But if you had this little chart, I reckon that would be fantastic. So that's sort of where we are at the moment, but I wanted to delve into some ideas that I had that I'd really like to see for the game of bridge. And the first one is I want sort of your stats, the Funbridge style, where it breaks it down into part scores, games, what you've done, and we can have that wherever we play. I think all bridge platforms should have it, but also in person. If you use a bridge mate, they have the hands, they could do that analysis, and I'd really like to see that sort of readily available. And you should have that whether you're playing in person or anywhere that you're playing online, because I think those can be really useful, as that's exactly what I was using to look at my strengths and weaknesses when trying to play at the highest level. So making that sort of stuff available for more people that didn't need someone to go through and analyze by hand 500 deals, I think would actually be quite useful. The second important one is I think we need better analysis tools than just double dummy. Like double dummy says what can be done if everyone can see the cards, and that just isn't realistic on the vast majority of hands. There's a bunch of hands you should be doing better than double dummy. There's a bunch of hands you should be doing worse than double dummy you don't know to drop singleton kings. You can't always take these finesses correctly. So what I would like to see is a combination of, you've got your double dummy analysis, and imagine that they got 4 robots to play the hand. Now, if the way you played it was neither double dummy accurate or how a robot would play it, that would probably strongly suggest that maybe you're actually making a mistake. So if you were doing something that neither of those options agreed with, you could look back and go, okay, now we can pinpoint where it was actually going wrong. So I reckon combining double dummy with some robot analysis would be great. Another thing I would want to see is just robot par. Like highlight exactly, if you got 4 robots in, where would they end up? What would they actually score? Because if you're looking at double dummy and going, oh, wow, Grand Slam can make, and it's on like 4 finesses, you might think, oh, should I have done it? But if you see that like the 4 AIs don't, like they just settle in game, and you settled in game, yes, slam might have been on, but it might not be a good slam, and that would be a way to try and highlight that. I would also really like that graph throughout a hand. I touched on this beforehand, but I wish that when you had a hand, it highlighted versus double dummy, how were you doing? And at what points were you ahead of it? What points were you below it? And what actually went? And then if you looked at where your dips were, it would be very easy to click on that and go, okay, this was the point where I made a mistake. Let's go back and let's see what we should have done. And sometimes it would be just not take the finesse because it drops, and you can sort of ignore those. But there'll be other times where you're like, okay, no, there was that critical mistake that we actually had. So if you could highlight, like Funbridge comes close, they say where your mistake was, but it's hard. You can't just click on it and it won't just bring it up. You can't see that visual representation. So I'd really like to be able to see that and just see your trajectory across the hand. When were you ahead of double dummy? When were you behind it? What actually happened there? And then finally, this one's probably a bit hard, but I'd like written descriptions in English, such as, you should be taking a finesse here. Oh, wow, you missed the chance to do a squeeze. It would be really hard to sort of hone this in. This is sort of like a long shot goal for me. But there's some of the ideas that I've got for improving the analysis. We've started making much better progress in this area just in the last sort of year, but I feel like there's a fair bit more room to go. I'd love to hear what your thoughts are. What sort of ideas do you have that would really help the analysis of bridge and sort of improve it, take it to that next level? So chuck it in the comments down below. Thanks all for watching, and we'll see you next time.